and knows this, but it bears repeating. So this is the first of our advanced workshops. We wanted to make this one part of this overall program meeting because hopefully you're going to get some more ideas and kind of see where we're going with this with respect to what you might want to change or improve in your operation. So worker health and hygiene is a huge, huge part of food safety. In fact, it's probably, aside from your water quality, is probably the biggest part and the biggest contribution to spreading pathogens. If you have looked at the harmonized gap audit checklist ever, you will see a huge, huge section on worker health and hygiene. In fact, there's 21 criteria that are about worker health and hygiene, toilets, and hand washing. And most of those, the majority of those are mandatory. So that means that if you're trying to get a harmonized gap audit and pass your audit and get certified, if you miss one of those mandatory criteria, you're not going to pass. So this is an area of food safety that I spend a little time on because it is definitely a big contributor, and it is one of the easiest things to implement in terms of good food safety practices. So why do we talk about it? Well, because we're humans and we're tactile and we touch everything. We touch our food when we eat, we put our hands in our mouth all the time, we're touching everything else as we move about our day, we cough, we smoke, we take gum in and out of our mouth, all these things. And that's how we spread germs. And we know, particularly now, we're all probably hyper vigilant about keeping ourselves clean, washing our hands, etc. And even more so, we should be doing this on the farm because all those hands are touching food that is eventually going to be eaten. And you really can't control your customers' behavior. Hopefully, they're going to wash their produce before they eat it, but you don't know that for sure. Maybe they're just going to throw it in the blender. So we want to be as vigilant as we can about preventing pathogen transfer, and that starts with us and proper health and hygiene on the farm. So things that you need to have, harmonized gap, if you are looking into that, it actually requires a written policy. And that all employees and visitors are made aware of it. So I'm not saying that to tell you to write it down right now, but just understand that that is how harmonized gap, which is a USDA certification, is going. And that may be something in the future that is going to be required of you if you're seeking that certification. What you must have on the farm is toilet facilities and hand washing facilities that are located in such a way that they won't contaminate your produce and that they're away from produce handling areas. You also need to be sure that they are serviced and maintained on a regular basis. I always, always, always emphasize this one because if you are a farm that is utilizing a LUA service, for example, you've got rented porta potties, they come once a week to clean your porta potty and make sure it has everything it needs. From a food safety perspective, that is not enough. You, as the farmer, also need to be checking up on that particular LUA. So you need to make sure that it is functioning and that everything that needs to be in there, like toilet paper, etc., is in there. We'll talk about that more with record keeping. Additionally, there is a certain number of facilities that need to be provided. For OSHA, OSHA says 1 facility per 20 workers. Most farms in Hawaii are not that big. Nonetheless, you do have to have a facility that is within a quarter mile of where your workers are, or a 5-minute drive. So we've got lots and lots of different operations in Hawaii, all kinds of different small farms. What you really need to be aware of is that the bathroom facility is accessible to you and your workers. So if you're farming on a lot and there's a house that you use for the bathroom, as long as you can get there, either by walking a quarter mile or in a 5-minute drive, you're good. Same thing if you're on a larger operation. So I mention these just because these are the things that you really need to be aware of. So as far as what you, the farmer, need to provide to support proper food safety practices on the farm, there's kind of a short list here. Obviously, proper bathrooms, we just talked about that, hand washing facilities. For hand washing facilities to be correct, they need to have clean water, potable water. That is drinking water standard. You certainly need to have soap, toilet paper, wastewater catchment. If you have, for example, a mobile field hand washing unit, or you don't have piping, you need to have some way to catch that wastewater from washing hands and other tasks. You need to have paper towels or single-use towels. This is one that sometimes folks, especially the more environmentally minded among us, get a little hung up on. I understand it, but when you're producing food for someone else, it's just one of the things you have to follow. So single-use paper towels. Rubbish cans, that's a no-brainer. Make sure that the rubbish cans around your farm have a lid. And the purpose of that is to prevent rubbish from blowing out or from critters getting in. Break area, we're going to talk about this one too, but that is something that you have to provide for your workers to have a proper food safety on the farm. And then first aid kits, certainly, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. Those of us who live across the state here, we're in different rural areas, we all know that having first aid kit is essential. I talk a little bit here about proper restrooms, and I know this probably is kind of funny to some people, but I have visited some farms where proper was not a word that I would use to describe the restrooms. So a hole in the ground, even if it's got really fancy stuff around it, that is not a proper restroom. A tree that you're using as your restroom, you go out and water it, that is not a proper restroom. And it sounds kind of funny, but I was literally at a farm just a few months ago that was the deal. I said, well, where's the restroom? And he said, oh, we just go off the back here and find a tree to water. And I was like, okay, well, red flag. So that's not okay. Just make sure that you are having a proper restroom, a real restroom. And your toilet and your hand wash station needs to be clean and sanitary. So nobody wants to go into a dirty bathroom or wash their hands in a sink that looks like it hasn't been cleaned. So that is part of proper food safety practices and habits. One other thing to mention here, toilet paper, you have to have it available and it only goes in the toilet. So in some cases, depending on the system or different areas of the country, sometimes there's a habit of throwing the toilet paper in the trash. That's not acceptable for on-farm food safety. It has to go in the toilet. You also have to have a wash station, a hand wash station that is near your lua. So very close by, either on the backside of it. For some, our rental ones have that, or something right there where as you exit the bathroom, you have a way to wash your hands. And again, that hand washing water has to be drinking water standard. Within that bathroom situation, you have to have soap for washing hands, disposable towels, rubbish container, and water catchment again. So I keep repeating those things. I think it's pretty much common sense, but still yet every now and then I run across a farm where that's not what's happening. So we just want to make sure everybody is kind of on the same page. This one, I really love this slide. I've shown it and shown it and shown it because I think it's just really important. Certainly now we're all much more vigilant about washing our hands, but I like this slide because it shows the areas that we often miss. And so I think it's a really good point to make. And when you get to the point of having employees or volunteers on your farm, this is a really great training opportunity. Just a quick demo on washing hands. How should you do it? You want to do it for 20 seconds with soap. And obviously, you see this picture here, you want to concentrate on some of these dark purple areas. So your thumb, all your fingertips, these are the areas that are most frequently missed. And when we think about what we do with our hands every single day, all these different tasks, that's really an incredible amount of opportunity to spread germs. So washing hands, especially on farm, very, very important. We want to make sure we're all in the habit of doing it. I always like to remind folks, if you ever are going to get an audit, you want to get food safety certified through GAP or some other system, make sure that your employees are really good about washing their hands, because that's one of those things that if an auditor sees someone exit the bathroom or come out from lunch and not wash their hands, that's going to be a problem. So wash, wash, wash. I think we all know that now from COVID. It's just, you know, something that it's easy to forget as you become an adult and you spend less time on the little things in life that you tell your kids. It's something we just need to revisit. So important. So I mentioned earlier, we're going to give you guys a mobile hand wash kit. And the reason that I think this is really important, it's one of my favorite workshops to do, is because not every farm has potable water at it. Lots of farms in rural areas or central Oahu, Kunia area, there is no potable water. So in order to properly wash hands on the farm, you need to have potable water with you. So we're going to give you a set, and it's going to look something like this. This is a set that I had for demo purposes. You may receive something a little bit different, but this big blue box is an aquatainer. You can see the bucket down here for the wastewater catchment. We've got a rubbish can with a lid. This one happens to be one where you step on the pedal and the lid opens. And then in the box here, you can see hand soap and paper towels. We're going to give you something just like this or very similar. We found in purchasing these for our first project that we had to be a little bit out of the box with some of the materials because soap was something that was really hard to come by a few months ago. Oops, sorry, I want to go backwards. I'm going the wrong way. So the mobile hand washing kit, we're going to give you those materials, and the way that you're going to set it up when you go to use it, you're going to take that aquatainer, unscrew the lid. On the inside of that lid is a spigot. So you're just going to flip that around, fill the aquatainer with potable water, screw your lid back on, and you're going to set that up on something like a table or the tailgate of your truck or wherever you happen to be where you need hand washing. You're going to put that bucket below it to catch the wastewater. We will provide you with a second rubbish container, either an actual rubbish can or a bucket with a lid to use as the trash can. Again, washing hands with soap and water for 20 seconds minimum. And then you're going to dry with a paper towel, dispose of the towel in the rubbish container, dump your wastewater. That can be done in an area where there's weeds away from your crop. Maybe you've got some little flower patch that you want to irrigate with your wastewater. Anything like that is fine if you don't have a place to pipe it out. So in a mobile situation, you're probably going to be looking for a weedy spot to dump that water. So again, that's what you're going to be receiving, and we'll be getting those to you guys as soon as we can. The next thing I want to cover, these are some things that are required for you to provide. So drinking water and break areas. This is important. Drinking water must be provided to your workers on the farm. So if you have a source of municipal or county water, that's fine. You can use that. If you do not, you need to make sure that there is some potable water available for your employees because you want to make sure that they have access to water, they don't get dehydrated on the job, which could lead to heat exhaustion, heat stress, etc. So either bottled water or one of those big water jugs, water barrels, you can use those. Again, potable water. So you must be filling it or purchasing potable water. Break areas, this is another requirement. So you need to have a designated area for breaks. And that is to provide folks with a place to sit down and rest, to eat, to drink, etc. So it doesn't have to be a separate building. It can all be kind of in the same location, but there does have to be some space. You don't want to have somebody sitting down to eat their lunch in the same table that they're packing lettuce in. So that's contamination potential there. So you want to have separation. Maybe you have a table set off to the side that is specifically for breaks and lunch and eating, etc. Maybe you have a pop-up tent that you set up on the side of your pack shed. Whatever you decide to do, it just needs to be a designated space that is located away from the crop. So that's something to think about. If you might need some supplies to make that happen on your farm, that would be eligible expenses. Oops. Here's another big topic. There are several criteria on the harmonized gap audit checklist as well as within FSMA that talk about worker illness and injury. Obviously, we're all very well acquainted with sickness and staying home when we're sick now. So just a reminder, if you have workers who are ill, they cannot be handling your product. That's just a hard and fast rule. If you have folks who get sick while they're at work, you should send them home. That is the ideal situation. In some cases, I know for single operators or single family operators, you've got a farm and you can't really take a sick day. What you want to do, again, is not handle produce. So maybe you put on a mask and gloves and you do some records or something else, but away from product. Ideally, you want your folks to stay at home until they are symptom-free. And again, we all know this now. It's been reiterated over and over again. This policy is also important to make it stick with visitors. So let's say you have someone who's coming out to take a tour of the farm. They show up, they're coughing and sneezing. you are well within your rights to ask them to reschedule. You should not have sick people coming around your employees or around your product. And so you just ask them to leave because that's food safety. It's a food safety concern. Injuries on the farm, certainly something that happens, and that's a food safety risk. So we don't want anybody cutting their finger and bleeding on our lettuce. So again, first aid kits available and stocked. So really an important piece of having the first aid kit is making sure that there's enough product in it if someone needs something. So if you cut your finger badly and you go to the first aid kit and there is no more alcohol swabs and Band-Aids, there's a problem there. So you really need to be sure that you have a first aid kit and it is something that you're checking every so often. Put it on your once a month checklist. When you get to the end of the month and you're recording everything on your restroom cleaning log, for example, that's a good opportunity to go and say, oh, I better check and see if anything got used out of the first aid kit. Just good to have those pieces. If someone does get injured on the farm, what are you going to do? First, of course, if it's severe, call 911. Don't wait. Just go ahead and call. Clean and bandage, of course, any wounds. That's another reason for having the first aid kit, potable water, soap, paper towels, etc. If the injury is not severe, you've got a little cut or scratch on your finger, well, you're going to use your hands while you're at work. So bandage that up and then put on a glove. And then you've got a double barrier there. So it's safer. You want to make sure that that person takes the glove off and properly disposes of it when their task is done. But you have set up a really stringent food safety policy there. If you have someone who cuts themselves, any of the product that they may have been handling or was around them, you may want to discard if it was just around them. Certainly if they cut themselves and bled on something, everything's got to go. That's, again, another hard and fast rule. Any surfaces, tools, any other items that bodily fluid may have landed on should be discarded or, if possible, cleaned and sanitized. So if it's packaging materials, you might not be able to clean and sanitize those. You're just going to have to throw them away. If it is tabletop or some other type of tool, that's something that you can clean with soap and water and then sanitize. And again, injuries, when they happen, things are going to happen. You need to have a policy that they're reported to you. As the owner operator of the farm, you need to know if someone gets hurt on your property, on your operation during work time. So fostering a sense of responsibility to making sure that they're protecting you as the owner of the farm is really important. You want them to feel free to come to you and say, oops, I cut myself. You want to know that that happened. So that food safety culture is really important, and it goes a long way to having a quality product in the end. Everyone who's working on the farm, including the owner, the management folks, should be trained on food safety practices. That training hopefully is going to be documented. That's really what you want to be doing there, is writing this stuff down. And you want to have a sense, a policy maybe even, that if someone is not going to follow your food safety policy, there's corrective action, because that introduces liability to you. So foodborne illness, it can happen on small farms. I have heard many times people say, oh, that doesn't happen on small farms. It's all the big guys. Well, I don't believe that that's true. I think it's harder to track when it happens from a small farm, but any situation can happen regardless of the size of the farm. Somebody can walk out of the bathroom and not wash their hands and go touch your product. So you need to have a way to foster a sense of responsibility to the product, to having a high quality food safety standard. And you need to have a way to say to people, hey, this isn't okay. I'm not going to let you stay working here if you can't follow this policy. And likewise, having a plan for rewarding good behavior. So folks that are following your food safety policies, think about how do you bring attention to that and thank them for that. Training should be a regular practice, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. We're going to talk about this in our future workshop, but training can be as simple as a hand washing demo. It's going to take you 5 minutes to run through everybody on your team and say, hey, here's how we're going to wash hands. We're going to make sure we do 20 seconds. Even just timing it is a good practice, because I think most people really aren't quite sure how long 20 seconds is. I mean, it's different when you think about it in your head versus when you're actually in process doing it. So that's a training, going through the hand washing process, making sure everybody's on the same page and doing it properly. Talking about what you're gonna do when you harvest. How do you handle your discards or your culled product? That's a training. So it doesn't have to be sit down and watch something really long or have someone come lecture to you. It can be very simple training that's done every day, every week, every couple of weeks. And doing that really enforces that idea that this is a quality operation. We have standards, we follow them. And then you want to think about emergency plans too. It's the unlikely events or the unanticipated events that really throw us. And so thinking about things that could happen, what are you going to do? If your water is shut down and you don't have clean potable water at your harvest station, well, what are you going to do that day? You can't harvest if you don't have any potable water. You can't wash hands, etc. So have a plan of action. Are you going to go get some water? Do you have another place to take your product to? If it's hurricane season and your lua blows over, what do you do? Well, first thing is you probably want to try to contain the spill, make sure it doesn't go to your product, but you also got to call the lua company. So just thinking about those little things before it happens, even engaging your crew, your staff in that is a really good training opportunity and just enforces the fact that you are thinking about these potential issues. Record keeping, everyone's favorite topic. I know most of you guys probably hate record keeping, but it's essential. It's very important because this is how we practice verification. How do we know that what we're doing is really what we're doing? Well, we write it down and we make sure that we have a way to check it. So do we know that the restroom got checked? Well, hopefully because someone filled out the log. Basic record keeping, even if you're not doing it now, it's something you want to start thinking about doing. Restroom checks, that's a really simple one. So you're going to check to make sure that the restroom is functioning properly. Does the toilet flush? Does the faucet work for the water? Does the soap, is the soap there? Is there paper towels? Is there a rubbish can? All of those things are part of the restroom check. Simple, simple, simple to do. Harvest information, this is a really good log to keep, one that even folks who don't typically do a lot of record keeping, they usually have something like this. This is important not only for tracking yourself, what your yield is, what your farm's production is, but it's also important for traceability, and it's good to see your trends. So year to year in a particular field, on a particular crop, what are you using? How is that affecting your operation? Harvest logs should include basic information, like where did you harvest it from? What is the crop that you harvested? How much of it did you harvest? Maybe even who harvested it if you have a big team. And all of that is going to help you figure out if you ever need to trace that product. So where did it go after you sold it? So including a little information there about who you sold it to or who picked it up is important. Employee training, again, if you are training your employees or you start making that a general habit, just write it down. So you're just gonna maybe create a little Google sheet and you put in there, yep, today we talked about hand washing and we did a demo. Injury illness reporting is very important too. So again, that's liability for you as the owner. You wanna have a situation where people feel comfortable coming to you and saying, hey, here's what happened. You don't wanna hear about it later. And then your input applications. I think this is very important to mention. Fertilizer application is not required by FSMA, but it is required with harmonized GAP. So again, if you're looking at going into group GAP or getting a harmonized GAP certification, that is something you'll need to be in the habit of keeping, a fertilizer application log. It also is useful to help you, again, see trends. So when you're planting this crop and you use this particular mix, how does that affect it? Pesticide application is required to keep a record of, and that's not only a food safety issue, it is a requirement, a federal requirement. So with your posting kit, we'll be giving you a log book that has a whole bunch of, it's a tablet, a whole bunch of logs on there. So if you are applying any kind of pesticides, you can keep track of that. I want to touch on water quality here, and I know we're getting close to time, so I'll keep going fairly quickly, but water quality is another really challenging piece of the puzzle for food safety. So it's very important that you know what your water quality is in your operation, because especially for post-harvest, we use a lot of water in those tasks, right? We're washing hands, we're washing product, we're cleaning tables, we might be cooling product. So water quality is very important. Any water that comes into direct contact with your produce, with your food contact surfaces that you're using to wash hands, or even to make ice if you have an ice machine, that must have no detectable generic E. coli. It's got to be drinking water standard or have 0 E. coli in it. So you need to know what your water quality is if you're unaware, if you don't have county water. And that's where this water sampling piece of what we're going to be doing is going to come into play. So we're going to provide you with that information. And it's important because cross-contamination is something that is really kind of hard to control, and we do our best to mitigate it. A lot of cross-contamination can occur via water, but certainly it occurs through ourselves, through people, through employees, and our hands, what we're touching on our clothes, on our shoes as we walk around. Also, tools and equipment can be a source of cross-contamination. So you've got a dirty piece of equipment and you put it down on the table, you put some crop down there, something that you just harvested, there's potential there for cross-contamination. Animals, of course, we in Hawaii, we're indoor, outdoor all the time. We really don't have a efficient and secure way to keep animals out of our packing sheds a lot of times. And so what we need to think about is how do we mitigate that? So again, going back to the idea of putting tarps over your packaging materials, you don't want to be packaging your product into a box that has lizard poop all over it. Nobody wants to receive that. So how do we mitigate it? We cover things up, we keep them off the ground, we put roofs over our areas as best we can. Even just locking things up. If you have a Rubbermaid container, or over here on Kauai, one of the farmers that I just visited, she had what looks like an old-fashioned pie safe, basically. She had that made. So she took an old cabinet, they put rubber seal on the doors, and then put a really fine mesh screen so she can put some of her product in there and keep the animals like geckos and things like that out. I want to touch just briefly on sanitizers. I know there's many operations out there that add a sanitizing agent to the water when you're rinsing your product. Just to keep in mind, the purpose of that is to prevent cross-contamination. And so when you're doing that, make sure that as you're using a sanitizer or choosing a sanitizer in the beginning, make sure you check the label, make sure that it is for that use and it is okay to use on fruits and vegetables or in water. Ideally, you want to know what your water quality is before you start adding that sanitizing agent. And if you are adding that sanitizing agent, you want to test your water after, because we want to see what happens. So if that's something that you're doing, we can definitely let you know if we can do a sample for you and whether that sanitizing agent is working properly. Always, always, always follow the label. This is probably one of the most common reasons that I see farms fail an inspection or an audit, because they aren't paying attention to the label. And so if you're using anything in your packing area, anything around your product, anything on your product, make sure you look at that label and see that it is okay for that intended use. That will be something that will be covered in worker protection standards as well. But certainly you can ask us if you have any questions about that. And that's it. So I'm going to stop screen sharing and open it up for any additional questions. I see a couple in here already. So can the page with the hand washing pick, yeah, I can send that to you guys to use as a poster for sure. And then a produce scale, would that qualify? Boy, that's a good question. Potentially, I think we could potentially make that work.
Yeah, I would say if you're trying to move into new markets and have new packaging requirements and things like that, then that would certainly qualify.
Yeah, I agree. Any other questions? I don't want to hold you guys up, but I want to make sure that we take advantage of the time we have and answer questions that are out there.
Yeah, when will you let us know when we're scheduled for the on-site assessment?
Right. Very good. So some of our team has started contacting folks already. So check your email. In the meantime, I will look to see who is assigned to you, Rick, and see if I can't figure that out, who's going to contact you and get them going. It could be that you have an email already. So if you haven't checked, take a look in there. It will be either from Francesca, Flora, Cindy, Josh, Jensen, or Amjad.
I have a comment. just about, I don't know if it's feasible, but we have ourselves imported a number of harvest bins already. And I was just thinking if there was a kind of bulk desire that it might be something, if you want the information on them, to order for everyone, because it's extraordinarily more cost effective to buy them in bulk than, you know, if you're going to get 10, it's like half the price to get, you know, 300 and then divvy it up.
You are absolutely right. Yeah, we would love to have any info you have on that. We were looking at ordering a pallet as well to distribute a few to everyone so that at least everybody has a couple. So if you've got more info, shoot it our way.
Yeah, we'll do.
Actually, everybody will be receiving 8 different harvest bins from us. And then we'll be looking as people order about where we can consolidate orders so that we can get them shipped here more efficiently and cheaper for everybody too. So we'll be trying to do that in-house as well. So yeah, Gabe, send me that information. I appreciate that.
Will do.
That's a really good point too, because we ran into this on Kauai where the folks were trying to order harvest bins, but we hadn't quite figured it out yet. And so everybody was like trying to do different things. And I was trying to put people together to make one single order, because you're right. If you order a pallet, it's much more cost effective than if you try to order, you know, just maybe 10 or 20. So thank you for that. Any other questions? Certainly feel free to write down our phone numbers. I'll send this all out to you as well. Again, you can certainly text or call or email at any point. This is going to be kind of a little bit crazy for the next couple of weeks, but I know we can pull it off. I know you guys are excited about it. We're very excited about it. And a little bit horrified, but it's all good. So I really, really, really appreciate your guys' time. Thank you so much for making time to sit through this with us and be a part of this project. This is really one of the only projects of its kind on Oahu going through with this CARES Act funding. So we're really stoked about it. We want to produce a really good report at the end. So thank you in advance for helping us to make that happen. I guess we'll get ready to wrap it up if there's no last minute questions. I know you guys probably have things you need to get back to, but again, thank you. Kevin, anything last minute?
No, I thought it went really well. And again, just can't impress enough. If you have questions or anything, let's keep the lines of communication wide open. Feel free to email, text, call us anytime. We're really devoted to getting this done for you guys.
Right on. All right, guys, go out and conquer, get that infrastructure request form started and shoot it to us along with any questions you have. And please feel free to use Kevin and I as backup to help you figure things out. That will keep the process moving really quickly. I'm on Kauai. I'm obviously not going to be coming out to your guys' farms. So I've got the opportunity to sit back and do a little work with you on those things so that we can keep this process moving. So have a wonderful weekend, a safe Halloween. If you're going out trick-or-treating, keep your mask on, and we will see you guys very soon. Thank you.
Well, thank you.